All right, you guys know I typically try to avoid the narratives that everyone else is going through, right? Like if everyone's talking about James Harden going to Philly, and you're going to hear nothing about that 24 hours wall-to-wall coverage of that conversation, I try to talk about something else. We try to get some college football in here. Why are you pointing at me?
A little bit. I mean, we did like 45 seconds on that last week.
Well, you did. That's what I said. Let's break it down. But and I gave you my best 30 seconds, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure.
I try not to hit it. And like obviously yesterday there's things that we wanted to talk about from the Super Bowl, but I try to avoid the same thing just because I know the people out there listening, they hear this ad nauseum all day. I'm not saying they're listening to 24 hours of radio, but you watch sports during the morning, you listen to it on the way to work, you get to work, and it's the same thing over and over again. I try to avoid that, right? But when somebody comes for Matt Ryan,
whoa,
I'm not going to stand for the slander. And for whatever reason, because the conversation around Matthew Stafford has now become, is he a Hall of Fame quarterback? Somebody at ESPN thought it'd be a good idea to put a graphic up there comparing Matt Stafford to Matt Ryan. And Matt Ryan pretty much owns Matt Stafford in every single statistical category outside of one. Super Bowl wins. Now, I'm not saying this is not a trial for Matthew Stafford's Hall of Fame resume. All right? This is a trial for Matt Ryan's.
I can give a little context if you want. If
sure,
you
do it.
So the reason they put the Matt Ryan graphic up there is because Richard Sherman this morning on Twitter went on his insane, right? So, okay, my bad.
I wasn't good, but no. Now that it's out there, go ahead.
Yeah, my fault. He went on his Twitter rant and was one of those things. I'm going to talk about this more on my podcast later, but here's all the reasons you need to know. And he brought up Matt Stafford, which then led to the graphic. Well, excuse me, Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because he brought up like it was these guys. I think it was a quote like guys had to dominate to get into the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and like that. So is that the statistical measure? Do you have to be? I know BJ says it sometimes where it's, was this person ever the best at their position?
I don't agree with that.
Which I think is interesting, right? Because by that metric, you can say nobody who played for the 20 plus years that Tom Brady played in the NFL should get in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
I like the metric more so. Can you tell the story of the sport without this player?
I mean,
if you can, then you maybe doesn't need to be in the Hall of Fame. But if you just want to go like statistical relevancy, no one in the history of the league has been on a higher trajectory towards just hitting these numbers than Matt Ryan. Like you look at like fastest to 20, 40, he's a little bit short of 60,000. He's on a faster pace than Drew Brees was, and I think Drew Brees is a surefire Hall of Famer.
First ballot, yeah.
Right. So it's I wanted to talk about like what you guys consider the relevant conversations and discussions and points and accolades that players have to receive to be considered for the Hall of Fame. Because in my book, and it sounds crazy to say because one has a Super Bowl and the other doesn't, I think Matt Ryan has a better case for being a Hall of Famer than Matthew Stafford does.
Well, at first, I would have said Stafford at first, and then I seen what Sherman said. I tweeted, I was like, dang. I mean, he went to Stanford for a reason. Dude just persuaded the heck out of me because he made me.
People know because not everybody saw it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, he was saying, Matt. Some people you have to dominate in certain. Like Matthew Stafford has 1 Pro Bowl. Matt Ryan has 4. People don't know Matt Ryan has a winning record against Richard Sherman.
And see, I would argue, I think the Pro Bowl is irrelevant.
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant.
Anything that people can opt out of and therefore someone else gets to go to, I think is irrelevant. Anything, and I'm a fan, so I'm not saying this is someone that's like high and mighty. Anything that has a fan vote should be irrelevant.
Absolutely. And I like what he said. He was like, just because it's this 1 year and he wins the Super Bowl doesn't mean he just goes to the Hall of Fame. You don't become a Hall of Famer after 1 year. It's a body of work. We know Matthew Stafford has put in a body of work, but he hasn't won. He's put in a body of work. But also, you give Matt Ryan, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Cooper Kupp, Odell. You give him Sean McVay, and that group Matt Ryan does. You put Matt Ryan on that team this year, they win the Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't think it's a glaring difference in my personal opinion. And I think it was a respect thing to Matt Ryan as well. He has an MVP. I mean, he's like, dude has an MVP. He has over 10,000 more yards than Stafford. Came in only a year before, 40 plus more games. It's just like, this narrative of just like, you become a Hall of Famer after one Super Bowl. And he has a losing record. Eli has a straight 500 record. Matt Ryan has a winning record. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Well, I mean, and Matt Ryan, if you want, I think talk about accolades, MVP.
Yeah.
That 2016 season was as good of a season as we've seen from a quarterback ever.
And that was a bad defense. They just created turnovers. It wasn't a good defense, though.
Yeah, 4,944 yards, 38 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He threw a touchdown on 7% of his throws. Like, dude was unbelievable. 9.3 yards per attempt, adjusted yards per attempt, 10. So he's picking up a first down basically every time he threw the football that season. Like, MVP, all pro, which I think is much more significant than a Pro Bowl, right? All pro. I mean, PJ, what do you think?
I think, what is it? What do you always say? Like, two things can be true at the same time. Yeah. I think that I wish Matt Ryan was never brought into the conversation to begin with, first of all, because to me, it's demeaning. It's automatically demeaning to one person when you're comparing them. It's like what I'm hearing from y'all is like so much about Matt Ryan, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't mean that like Matt Stafford shouldn't be in or doesn't have a case, right?
Not the trial of
like,
Matt Stafford.
Right. I think both of them have definitely respectable cases to be in the Hall of Fame and to get in there. Like you said, that 2017 season, was extremely impressive from Matt Ryan and one of the best. Okay, yeah, one of the best. He went on it and won the MVP. And I'll say that, like, we saw Cooper Kupp go out and have one of the best, if not the best, season for a wide receiver this year ever. And I said it earlier in the day, like, everyone looks at that and is like, man, see what Matt Stafford had? Like, that helped him a lot. Like, yeah, sure. But I think, like, Cooper Kupp benefited from Matt Stafford just as much as Matt Stafford benefited from Cooper Kupp. I've been saying for a long, long time that if Matt Stafford could just get somewhere with some people around him, some dudes around him, he'd be able to take a team and, if not win, a Super Bowl very quickly. And boom, he did. Now, I didn't think they'd have the kind of defense that they have. That's insane. Of course, that was a huge part of it. No doubt about it. I'm not saying he did it all himself. But it's like, I think if Matt Ryan goes out and wins a Super Bowl and has all these people, has all these people in 2017, like if he feels, of course they go on and win the Super Bowl. Heck, he almost did it without a defense that year, and with what was it, Vic Beasley was the biggest defensive player they had on that team. I think. Like, I mean, so I definitely give you that, but I think it's kind of two in the same. Like, the only thing Matt Ryan really has left to do is win a Super Bowl. And even if he doesn't win a Super Bowl, I think that could be a Hall of Fame career. Well, if he does win a Super Bowl,
the other conversation I was going to have is a Super Bowl. I think there's as of right now, I believe there are 26 quarterbacks in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Right, we're about to have a whole bunch get in. Like Peyton Manning hasn't been retired long enough to be in. Right, Tom Brady just now retired. Like, we have a whole bunch. Like Phillip Rivers, I think, is a borderline Hall of Famer, right? There's a bunch of guys I think that are going to get in over these next few years. They have just retired. They need that 5-year window. But I think back and look at the different guys. A lot of guys who are in the Hall of Fame never played in the Super Bowl because the Super Bowl didn't exist when they were quarterbacks, right? But you look at some of the names in there that haven't either made the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl. Obvious one's Dan Marino.
Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly made 4 Super Bowls
and never won.
Didn't win one. Fran Tarkenton, very similar to that. And then I think the one I wanted to compare Matt Ryan to was Dan Fouts, because Dan Fouts, I think, is the most modern in terms of like what he was doing through the air. Right, dude was like one of the first quarterbacks who was averaging 300 yards a game. In his playoff resume, he was 3-4, but he averaged 303 yards per game in the playoffs. So like he I don't know that he made a Super Bowl. I know he never won one. right? Dan Fouts is, I think, who you can kind of compare Matt Ryan to, where he's just slinging the ball all over the place, crazy statistics. But look at the playoffs. He's 3-4, 12 touchdowns, 16 interceptions in the playoffs. Matt Ryan in the playoffs, 4-6, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. A 100 quarterback rating compared to a 70 quarterback rating. Matt Ryan plays well in the playoffs. Only bad game I can really think of for him was against the Giants.
24-2.
Yeah, forever ago.
But I mean, they couldn't block him.
No, I mean that was the Giants win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they couldn't block him, right? What did they hold the Patriots to? 14.
Like 14, yeah.
Right. So it's like and that was the
Randy Moss.
Yeah. That was the undefeated.
Yeah, that was the undefeated.
That was the demolishing everyone Patriots. So it's like it's for me, Matt Ryan's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think he falls at, like, if you want to compare him to other guys, I think he has just as good, if not a better resume than a Dan Fouts, who is a Hall of Famer.
I agree. And here's another thing. Have we ever seen like a quarterback in the league win the MVP? It's like normally the MVP, the NFL gets it right, in my opinion, for the most part.
Yeah.
I've never seen kind of like a average quarterback or not a Hall of Fame caliber quarterback win the MVP. Like we could say Lamar. I think Lamar is going to make the Hall of Fame one day. I truly think that. I think he has another MVP in him. That's the only one I could think of, like, oh, he's a quarterback that won MVP, but I don't know if he's going to get into the Hall of Fame, especially here recent in the past 15 to 20 years. You see Brady, you see Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers is he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but all those guys that's won MVP, I can't. Mahomes is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer?
Ooh, man, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Made the Super Bowl. Had he won it, he would.
Basically has every quarterback rushing record ever.
I think personally, first ballot, no. But personally, I think Cam will get in there. I think Lamar will get in there.
But like to be fair to you, like going back to 2000, Marshall Faulk, Hall of Famer, Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer, Rich Gannon.
Maybe not. But you see maybe like one or two in the past 20 years.
Peyton Manning, Steve McNair, Sean Alexander, LT, Tom Brady.
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers, Adrian Peterson. Yeah, all Hall of Famers. I think Cam Newton, maybe question mark. I would say he is a Hall of Famer. Just based off of the NFL records that he holds. Most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback, most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a season, most rushing attempts by a quarterback. He was an MVP in 2015, like offensive rookie of the year in 2011.
Yeah. I think he's
all pro 2015. I mean,
if he's not first ballot,
I think to me he's difficult. Like I'll be honest. Like I think to me he's difficult because if you look, like you said, those 4 or 5 years, he was insane. He broke the game when you talked about his ability to rush the football and just power over people and things like that. But again, it's like that's a 4 or 5 year window, right? And then you got to include those latter years too, where let's be real, like he hasn't done a lot in the last 3 or 4 years.
I think they broke his body. Like it's it's like a running back. You can't compare him to other quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
Where other quarterbacks you're looking at 10, 15, in Tom Brady's case is 20 years because they just don't get hit. Think about the stat that I said. He has the NFL record for most rushing attempts by a quarterback. Yeah. He has 1,112.
I think ultimately, like that's probably what gets him in because it's
like the average lifespan for a running back,
like you said,
3 years.
Yeah. It's something different from the quarterback position that we've seen, and who knows the next time we'll see it, because like you can say Lamar Jackson but he runs it in a different way. Right. And
he does.
And like he's still a pass first quarterback too. Not saying that Cam Newton isn't, but it was just he was such a different kind of creation, just a different being at the quarterback position for sure.
To be fair to Cam Newton against Lamar didn't have nearly the playoff success.
No,
not quite. Yeah,
not quite. Not yet. He only has one.
Right? I will say this: he won the MVP. He was not as dominant as Cam Newton was in 2015.
No, he wasn't. Sure. It was kind of like, Lamar reminds us of Vic. It's the glitz, the glamour, the flash. I mean, he deserved to win MVP, but it wasn't as dominant.
And see, I would argue, and I don't think like baseball takes this into account a lot more than the NFL does. Mm-hmm. I would argue Michael Vick is a Hall of Famer just based on the impact that he had on the game and how he kind of changed things. But that being said,
we know why he wouldn't get in. Though.
Well, it's a lot of the off the field stuff, and I think most people would argue maybe he doesn't deserve it based on the on the field stuff, just on the field play. Like didn't really have too much postseason success, even though he had a win in Lambeau, had one of the most iconic plays of all time when he split the defenders in Minnesota, right? Like so, it's I think baseball more so than football takes into account kind of the legacy and the aura of a player. Whereas football, it is very much accomplishments, statistics, and accolades.
Yeah, that's true.
That they
right
really factor.
Put some respect on Matt Ryan, man. I don't know why.
I think he's a Hall of Famer.
No, I think he's a Hall of Famer. I don't know why people continue to disrespect him.
And it's like we always say with Matt Stafford, like, oh, dude had to play in Detroit. Before Matt Ryan got to Atlanta, they'd never had back-to-back winning seasons.
Yeah. Freaking, you remember the dark days, Joey Harrington.
There were dark days for sure, but I think when I say that about Detroit, I think
who was the best Falcons quarterback prior to Matt Ryan? I mean, you have Michael Vick. I mean,
Vick.
Bartkowski.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Chandler.
Not Chris Chandler, for the love of God. Like Bartkowski.
I think like when I say that about Detroit, I think less about like the organization, I guess, and think about the people who are around him. Like, yeah, he had Megatron, but other than that, like defensively didn't have a lot else. And he was making it work. And all due respect, he did some great things in the league, but Nate Burleson was one of his best wide receivers for a long time too. And again, like that's a really good NFL wide receiver. But other than that, what do you have? Defensively wasn't working with anything. So like, I don't know. I've been thinking it and saying it for a long time. The last thing he needed was a Super Bowl. And if you take it now, Aaron Donald is the MVP of that team and especially of the defense. But that we've seen that offense with not Matt Stafford at quarterback, and it was stymied and dysfunctional and a problem. You put him there.
It also
Super
went
Bowl.
to a Super Bowl before.
So it did go to one and put up 3 points. So like, I just, again, two things can be true at the same time. Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford, they would both get my yes right now. I think something else. I know this is probably a broader picture kind of point, and we got to go to break, but I think also you name off all those guys that Matt Stafford and Matt Ryan have had to compete against over the past 15, 10 years they've been in the league. Think about the last 20, 25 years. Like, I think one thing that people aren't really getting, you said 29 quarterbacks in the NFL Hall of Fame, 26. Like you said, that number's going to shoot up. That number's going to shoot up quite a bit, and that makes sense. Because think of the era of football that we've had the past 20, 25 years. That's going to happen. And like, if you're getting quarterback,
I don't know that it is. Can you tell me who the latest quarterback is in the Hall of Fame?
The latest one. I'm saying it's going to happen next. Like it was Brett Favre the last one.
Peyton Manning, then Brett Favre.
Or Peyton Manning, Brett Favre, and now I'm pretty sure you're going to get Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, possibly Ben Roethlisberger. Like, there's a lot of people that are going to join that list
for a while.
I don't know that he is going to. Period. I don't know that Matt Ryan or Matt Stafford are going to.
Yeah.
They might because the Super Bowl appearances.
There have been 56 Super Bowls played, and there's 26.
Thanks.
Yeah,
man.
I just think people are going to get
a guy who won 7 of them.
Yeah.
Just now retired.
Right.
Yeah, I would love Matt Ryan to get one crack at just the playoffs. Same with Stafford. I want to see Stafford in the playoffs again, defend the crown, see what you do about that. But I would like to see.
Oh yeah, I think Matt Stafford's got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Matt Ryan, on the other hand,
depends where. Depends what Atlanta does. Yeah.
Max.
Depends what Atlanta does. If they trade him to somewhere where he could contend, which me personally, as a Falcons fan, I wouldn't want to see Matt go, but I would love to just see him like contend maybe the next 2-3 years one last time, just to see if he can go out there and have some left in the tank.
That's not going to be in Atlanta. Let's take a quick break.
Not.
I want to come back. I want to talk about PJ was just talking about. We'll do that next right here on ESPN Radio. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by the Uniform Source. Chris Yokel alongside PJ Zuko and Cam Urshry. Glad to have y'all hanging out with us here. All right, so PJ brought up a conversation that I love to have, which is you have to factor in relevant, pertinent things when you're having these conversations, different variables when you're having these conversations about greatest of all time, best of all time. PJ, take over real quick because I'm going to go close the door because 3-and-out's being rude as hell right now. So I'll be right back.
No, completely understandable. I mean, that's you have different people in the office today, so they got new people to talk to. So they're all over the place. Sometimes you forget your manners, but no, you're exactly right. And yeah, what I've been talking about.
Close doors, so
yeah, no,
fine.
for sure. No one closes doors around
It's
here.
hard to have a conversation when Ben Troop is yelling.
And part of it is like he can't control that, man. That's his voice.
I love Ben. That's a large dude.
It is what it
is.
His
voice is big.
It's gonna carry.
Yes,
right. But
it is what it is.
It carries more when the door's wide open.
When we're having these conversations, I think a lot of people. I think best example would be Phillip Rivers. They would consider Phillip Rivers' career a disappointment, right? When you look at it in the immediate aftermath, right? It's like Phillip Rivers played in all of these seasons, was a starting quarterback for a really good team for a long time, right? I guess San Diego for a majority of his career. It was a really good football team. I mean, dude played with Damian Tomlinson, right? He had some guys. Just think about all the receivers out there, the Vincent Jacksons that he's had throughout his career, right? Played on some really good teams, had some really good defenses out there, right? Went 14-2 in one season, set all kinds of passing records, right? Phillip Rivers, really good quarterback, never won a Super Bowl, right? Disappointing career. Can't be a Hall of Famer, right? I don't think that's true when you have to go through Tom Brady, who's literally the best to ever do it. Right? And think about the other quarterbacks they had to play against. I don't know, Peyton Manning, just to get out of his own conference.
Yep.
Right? And so to me, you can't just say, oh, he never won a Super Bowl. It's a disappointment. I think you have to look at the relative factors and say, he was playing against Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's hard to get past Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. I don't care who you are. Think about it. They won 6 Super Bowls.
That's like one of my favorite. Also, like
9.
Yeah, that's one of my like favorite, but also most disconcerting pictures of all time when it comes to the NFL. Is if you look at the AFC starting quarterbacks, for the AFC champion starting quarterbacks in the Super Bowl over the last like 20 years, and it's Tom Brady's. You got Peyton Manning's. And then Ben Roethlisberger a couple 3 times too. So like, you have to go through that for 20 years. Have fun, right? It's
well, and
insane.
if it's also it's not just the conversation we're having about looking back and like debating best of all time or Hall of Famers, right?
Right.
It also can completely having something that dominant inside your sport can completely alter the way everyone else tries to operate. Think about what Nick Saban's done to the SEC. Think about the turnover that you see in the SEC West simply due to the fact that you're not Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And to get out of your own division, you have to beat Alabama. And so we just see coaches who are really good, coaches who I think would probably have kept their jobs for a lot longer. Like Gus Malzahn probably doesn't get fired at Auburn, right? A bunch of these other coaches, Les Miles at LSU, even though there was some off the field stuff there. But when you look at the on the field, what was his biggest bugaboo? He couldn't get past Alabama on a consistent basis. And so chasing that level of excellence can just be catastrophic because instead of realizing what you have, you try to move on to the next best thing because you're trying to get that, whereas it's the most rare thing. Think about it. We say Nick Saban's the best coach of all time, like college football history. You're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Like, I understand you say, well, there's a 0% chance of that happening if you don't try. No, you're not going to get that, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to get Tom Brady.
Ooh, the way I measure Hall of Fame quarterbacks, you have to have one of the two, a Super Bowl ring or an MVP. So my case with Phillip Rivers, I know he has one more playoff win than Matt, one more loss than Matt. So he's 5-7, Matt is 4-6. So kind of comparable. I think the only thing that may separate Matt is Matt actually went to the Super Bowl, even though he lost, he got an MVP. I know Phillip Rivers had to go through some really nice teams because the Colts had Dallas Clark and Reggie Wayne and Marvin and Sanders at the safety and Joseph Adai, all those guys, all those good players in the Patriots. I just would have liked to see Phillip Rivers get just one Super Bowl appearance. I mean, I know he's a good quarterback. He put up great numbers. And I appreciate that.
But the point I'm trying to make is you can't hold that against Phillip Rivers.
No, I'm not holding. It's a team game. I'm not holding it against him.
Not even that. He couldn't beat Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Peyton Manning. Yeah. I would just like them to see. I
So
measure
the
it from
metric
Super
is-
Bowl or
P-
MVP.
PJ puts it like this, and I think he was talking to you about this, PJ, is Tom Brady's 100. Just because you're not 100 doesn't mean 95 is not good enough.
Right.
Right? Like, if you can get a 95 on a test, you still got an A+ on that test.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't, it just, you weren't 100.
Right.
And you were playing the best to ever do it. And arguably the best to ever do it with the best head coach to ever do it.
Right.
And you're gonna hold that against you that they weren't able to get past that.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna hold it against him. Like, and they're gonna look at it like, Philip, do you have an
If I had to
MVP?
put money on it, I would say Phillip Rivers, Matt Stafford, and Matt Ryan don't make the Hall of Fame.
I'll put Matt Ryan in there.
Yeah.
If he continues,
I don't think he does.
If he could go to a team that contends, I know that definitely won't be in Atlanta.
I mean, Atlanta's already said they want him back, right?
I love Matt Ryan, and I want him back, and he's going to be the quarterback for the Falcons next year. No team's going to eat $50 million for a year of Matt Ryan.
Yeah, because this is the last year of his contract, or he has another year.
Yeah, it's another.
Lord have mercy.
That's rough.
Man, I mean, yeah, it's super rough. I would love to see Matt Ryan contend only because I want to see how you would go out. I think it's also how you go out too. Because in my opinion, if you're going to put wide receivers in the Hall of Fame and they don't have rings, T.O. doesn't have a ring, Randy Moss doesn't have a ring. A lot of these guys don't have rings. Julio's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Julio's ever going to get a ring, not in Tennessee.
Matt Ryan has a cap hit of $48 million in 2022 and 43 in 2023.
I don't know. Maybe a contender opens up. I don't know.
But I mean, that's a very good point, though, too, is like if you're going to hold quarterbacks and only quarterbacks to that stipulation, then what are we doing? Yeah. Like, I mean, there are incredible and Hall of Fame type players out there and guys that we've talked about that should be in. And just because they're a quarterback and just because they're playing in this era, they don't make it in like that. I think that's my other side.
Before the Super Bowl win, Aaron Donald was already a Hall of Famer.
Right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's like people are already coming at it, and I think Richard Sherman is coming at it from
Barry Sanders didn't even get close.
Like the other side of this, where
never did.
They're simply not going to get in. If they don't get in, they're not going to get in because of quarterback fatigue. And it's quarterback fatigue because for the last 20 years we've had quarterbacks in the passing game completely revolutionize it and take over the NFL. But I think like the Hall of Fame has to reflect that too. Just because you weren't the top one or two quarterbacks in the 20-year span that quarterbacks took over the league doesn't mean you shouldn't be in, right? So we go back and look at like the 70s through the 90s. You're going to find a lot of running game, offensive linemen, defensive players who made it into the Hall of Fame, right? That makes sense because of where the era of the game was and how the game was played.
I don't think it's right, but I think when you look back and you're just having like the at the bar conversation, 10, 15 years from now, everybody's going to remember Tom Brady. Everybody's going to remember Peyton Manning.
Right.
But they're going to be like, hey, remember that one time Tom Brady beat Matt Ryan? And people like, oh, Matt Ryan. Yeah. I remember Matt Ryan. Like that's
a shame. Yeah.
But that's the reality. And that's why I don't think he's going to get in.
People really do not think Matt Ryan's a good quarterback. I'm like, I love Vic.
You know why the country doesn't think Matt Ryan's a good quarterback? Because 50% of the Falcons fan base doesn't think Matt Ryan's a good enough quarterback.
Like, true. I grew up watching Vic, had season tickets and all that. I love Vic. Vic isn't Matt.
He's not Matt Seahawks Ryan. Fans, if Matt Ryan's a good quarterback.
Yeah. He's dominated them.
And that's,
but Vic isn't Matt Ryan.
That's the frustration, like with both of these guys that we started talking about today, is that conversation right there. Like these guys aren't good quarterbacks. They're just not on a good team right now. Like they don't have the people around them right now.
Name one time, not even Aaron Donald. Name one time Matt Ryan had a defender on his team that was as good as Von Miller.
That's the point. Never. Everybody's going to preach John Abraham. He was at the tail end of his career.
John Abraham was good.
He was good, but he was at the tail end of his career.
I wouldn't say that. I think you got 3-4 prime years out of John Abraham. He was really good.
He wasn't great though.
And you had Jonathan Babineau. They had Aaron Donald
and Jalen Ramsey and Von Miller.
Correct.
It's a lot of things that go. I heard people saying this year, why don't y'all bring Cam Newton back? Are you kidding me? Over Matt Ryan? Like you want Cam Newton in Atlanta this year over Matt Ryan because he's from Atlanta? That's cool. You want to win.
You also can't make decisions based off of fans.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand
the
issue.
Perception around the league of Matt Ryan. I'm not saying like of active NFL. I'm saying of like NFL fan bases is Matt Ryan's an okay quarterback and he's been the problem in Atlanta because for whatever reason, a good majority of the Atlanta fan base thinks Matt Ryan's been the problem for the past X amount of years.
You put him on some of these contenders.
No, you look what happened when he had a legitimate offensive coordinator, a semi-conscious defense, right? He won the MVP.
Ask a friend. If you put him on San Fran this year, I have San Fran winning the Super Bowl. Easily. I would actually have them winning the Super Bowl.
Maybe.
You tell me he can't do a better job than Jimmy G?
He's certainly a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo.
There you go. They lost to the Rams by 3.
That's without a doubt.
By just 3, because Jimmy G threw a last-second interception. Matt Ryan's on that team. You win the Super Bowl. You can put him on a lot of contenders.
Oh, yeah.
They go from average to a playoff team.
The jump you saw with Matt Stafford from going from Detroit to the Rams, if you put Matt Ryan in that same situation, he's absolutely shredding defenses.
Most likely. What's funny about just a little side note, just because I think it's funny, like the parallels between these two guys and these two teams. Like I have a friend who lives in Detroit. And what's funny about it, I've been talking about Matt Stafford throughout the year with him, and it's hilarious because they have friends that were saying the same thing about Matt Stafford last year, like saying the same thing about Matt Stafford. Like they were part of the problem. There's a fan base up there. There's a part of the fan base up there who thinks he's the problem. Blah blah blah. Oh, good, he's gone to the Rams, whatever. And then this year they're like, oh man, like. This year, they said that anytime they'd bring it up, they'd get in like fights with their friends because their friends would be like, "Well, why you gotta talk about that?"
I could think of a
so
great
like
team.
It's to me that's exactly like if Matt Ryan were to ever leave, and those Atlanta fans would be doing the same thing. Oh, thank goodness he's gone. And then guess what?
I'll give you a prime example of a team that if Matt Ryan swapped places and went on that team, I would have them in the AFC Championship. Cleveland Browns. They have everything but a quarterback. They got the best O-line, running back, solid receiving core, top 5 defense. They went 7-10, 8-9 this year because they were missing the quarterback. I think a lot of people take Matt Ryan for granted. I do want to draft a quarterback this year, not because Matt Ryan isn't good, just because he's getting old. I want to prepare for the future. That's just being realistic. But as far as pushing him out and saying I don't want him in Atlanta, what could we get in Atlanta that's better? We're not getting Kyler Murray. We're not getting Deshaun Watson. We're not getting none of these top flight QBs that are young and got potential. Matt Ryan, I still think he's a top 10 quarterback at the end of the day. If not top 10, he's 11 to 12 for sure. I don't understand the hate. I just don't understand it.
It is what it is. Again, fans are going to feel the way they feel, and quarterback, we talked about this yesterday, it's the most important position in sports. And so fans are always going to point at the problems of a franchise, starting with quarterback. They think that's what's going to fix it. Kind of what Cam just said. Put another quarterback on this Falcons team, it ain't going much different.
Nah.
It's going worse.
We get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
We'll just have
like Matt Ryan.
The same amount.
Matt Ryan didn't trade Julio Jones and have Calvin Ridley decide he didn't want to play. Right?
Exactly.
Matt Ryan didn't choose to have Russell Gage as his best receiver.
He still got 7 wins too.
Yeah. Which was unbelievable that happened. But anyway, like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm not going to stand for any Matt Ryan slander. If you want to slander Matt Ryan, feel free. 912-342-7184. Call in and talk about it. Let's talk about it, because I'm 1,000% here for it. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back with more right here on Second Down. Yeah, boy, Cam, it sure would be nice as you play little John Fogerty, some baseball music. Would be nice if there was some baseball happening today. Why are you trying to hurt us?
I really didn't know. I just didn't know.
Why are you trying to hurt us?
I seen center field. I'm like intrigued.
We're supposed to have pitchers and catchers reporting today. Old P's and C's. And here we sit with no baseball on the horizon.
Here they sit.
I shouldn't say no baseball because Lord knows we will talk about college baseball on here if we need to.
Oh yeah, there is college baseball going on.
We'll talk softball.
You're gonna need to do a lot of research.
I actually should go to a Savannah State softball game. So you should
go to Savannah State women's basketball game.
Oh no, I have been to a couple.
Yeah,
one loss this year. What are they? 22-1.
And fun fact, if it's good with you, we will have a couple of people on the show.
Why are you whispering?
Couple of people.
Why are you whispering?
Couple of people. Because they're watching.
Because they haven't said no. They haven't said yes yet.
No, they have said yes. Couple. Leading scorer.
When were you gonna let me know?
Huh? I can make a phone call on break for you.
But when were you gonna let me know?
It was a surprise. I'm letting them be comfortable throughout the season because they're on, their heads on straight. But before the conference tournament,
got to keep the focus.
Or before senior night, most definitely. But got some good connections there. They're having a spectacular year. Big win last night.
Didn't they beat?
They avenged their one loss.
Yep, big win. Benedict is one of the best teams in the country. So big win last night.
Didn't they beat someone like a couple of days ago by like 85 points or something? It was insane. It's like they didn't show up.
I think it was Morris College.
Yeah, pretty sure it was like 125 to like 30. It was
rude,
ridiculous.
I get it.
Yeah, they've been having a spectacular year.
You can't just stop playing.
Softball's cooking up. They found a coach. They're 1-1. They had their first game Friday. They're playing absolutely. They're actually playing right now. Because today's Tuesday. They play a doubleheader tomorrow against Alabama A&M. So you got some different sports going on.
Are you volunteering to be our Savannah State softball expert?
I would go. My two best friends play there. Play on the team.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you got to be here.
Yeah, I know. I go out there and catch some sun, nice Savannah weather. Have me an icy, because it's not too cold anymore. Have me a little icy.
What kind of ice are you going?
No, stop. We're killing this.
No, we're stopping it. Are you sure?
Yeah.
You guys don't like snow cones?
Blueberry cherry.
You don't like snow cones?
Stop.
What?
Let the host do host things. Hold on. Sorry. My bad.
Snow cones.
You can't hear about ices and not talk about ices.
Blueberry and fruit punch and cherry. Okay,
I love snow cones. I just don't know what the hell this conversation is.
Looking forward to having some guests on the show at some point. And Cam's going to watch some basketball and softball.
No, he's not. Because we just said they play the softball games at the same damn time we're doing the show.
They do.
Every time?
They do.
Every game?
For right, 2 and 4.
Never mind.
So for the most part, yeah.
Bring your laptop out there. We'll see what happens.
No.
Live coverage.
No. And listen, if you're Savannah State softball out there listening right now, which I hope you're not, because apparently you're playing a game. It's not because I don't like you. It's just because, Cam does a job here.
Jobs are important.
I'm sure there's a lot of people right now working that would love to just be at a Savannah State softball game, but
absolutely
work.
Absolutely. It's
I
all
know I know around here that is a very loose term.
Whoa. Hey now.
Very loose?
Kind of loose.
We work really hard 20% of the time. All right? I'm not.
I think that's being very generous.
With the very hard part of the 20%.
Well, I wanted to ask y'all who your favorite baseball player was growing up that didn't play for your favorite team, but now here we are.
Oh, I can answer that.
No, now here we are.
It's a pitcher, and you guys are not going to.
No,
like
I wanted to spend at least like 10 minutes here, but
you're not going to like that.
We talked about ices and snow cones, so great.
I didn't really have one.
I do.
Who was yours?
Clayton Kershaw. I love Clayton Kershaw.
I hate you so much
You're
right
young,
now.
Yeah, I know.
No, what in the world?
I know.
Growing up,
Clayton Kershaw was a kid.
Dude, Clayton Kershaw with the hair.
My age.
Clayton Kershaw with the hair and man, yeah, Clayton freaking Kershaw. He's awesome. ERA, he's awesome.
PJ didn't really watch baseball.
This is my thing. Yeah, like I never really.
And you didn't even have a favorite team.
Not if that's the crazy thing. If I did have a favorite team, it was probably the Braves because I watched them.
Okay,
all the
who's
time.
your favorite Big Ten player that didn't play for Penn State?
No, I'll answer. No.
Answer that correctly.
I'll answer your baseball question. All right.
You said no.
Because my favorite player on my favorite team would probably have to be Chipper on the Braves, even though I grew up in Pennsylvania. But like we had TBS, and you know how that goes. I had a couple, and this is the weird thing is like they were going after each other with the home runs and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Mark McGwire. But I liked Sammy Sosa a lot too. Yeah, that was funny because they were going back and forth with the home runs. But I liked both of them. I was enamored by that.
Enamored, he says.
Yeah, sure.
Vocabulary.
Your brother wrote in.
Oh.
He's got one of mine.
Oh, okay, cool.
Randy Johnson.
Yeah.
And
I can see that, yeah.
He no hit my team.
Yeah, that's
But
tough.
he was absolutely filthy. But also, guys like Craig Biggio were lit. But I'd say, like, growing up, my favorite to watch, because he started with the Marlins and then obviously with Detroit, Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah.
Dude was filthy.
I can see that.
Still is. Just mashing home runs.
I always respected the heck out of Ichiro, too.
Oh, yeah. Love a guy that does yoga poses.
Yeah.
But also just like apparently like just the consummate professional, and like every executive that's ever had him was like, I love you. Please don't ever leave us. And he's like, I gotta go.
You know, in like high school, what Brian Wilson. The closer for the Giants, the beard
with Lincecum and those guys out there. That's a great one.
I think he buttoned like one button on his baseball
jersey.
Like
none of those players from the Giants.
To me, is like this is everything baseball hates. I feel like, and I'm here for it.
I loved a lot of the dudes with the Red Sox just because that was a really cool story. Like back in 2002, 2003, Johnny Damon looking like a caveman, David Ortiz, Dustin Pedroia, those dudes. Like I liked a lot of those Red Sox players. Those guys are really cool. But like I like the Craig Biggios, but Miguel Cabrera just. That was that guy.
Understandable.
The Marlins had some lit players. The thing that sucks is the Marlins hated their fans, and so every time they had a lit player, they traded them.
Dang.
And it's true. And they still operate like that. So there it is. Let's take a quick break. We'll come out, wrap up Second Down next. Second Down on ESPN Radio is presented to you by The Uniform Source. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us today. If you miss any portion of the show, you can check it out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, ESPNCoastal.com. And as Rich Stiles likes to say, hey, you can find it here, you can find it there, you can find it anywhere you want to find it.
Just turn it on, you got it.
Speaking of Rich Homie Styles, joining us coming up here at 3:30, the one and only Rich Stiles from the Back Nine Boys. You can hear him every Saturday and Sunday morning. One of the best, no, I'll just say it, the best golf show you've ever heard in your life. The dulcet tones of Rich Stiles.
Of course.
Smooth as a baby's bottom.
Grab that cup of coffee.
Used to be a DJ in Chi-Town back in the day with the gold chains.
Can you imagine that kind of drip?
Yes, 1,000%. I can absolutely imagine that. But he's going to join us at 3:30. Before that, we'll be joined by George Atkinson, Super Bowl champion, Raiders legend, going to hop on the show and talk Super Bowl with us as well. All that coming up next on 3 and Out. BJ Bennett, Ben Troop, and Kevin Thomas will be back tomorrow, same time. And again, you can find all of our stuff on ESPNCoastal.com.